It is not uncommon for artists to paint self-portraits, sometimes in series throughout their life. Rembrandt produced dozens, documenting the various stages of his career. It is always interesting to witness the visual changes that a painter perceives through this very intimate chronological analysis, how time produces subtle changes over the years. It is especially revealing when the portraits illustrate both the beginning and the ending of a creative life. How the artist sees him or herself. Is such an interpretation just about the passing or even ravages of time, or does it reflect emotions, optimism, pessimism, or perhaps satisfaction? Through the medium of the self-portrait, the artist can convey so much to his audience, although possibly only what the audience is allowed to see. However, our story is much concerned with the passage of time, but is not concerned with the self-portrait, rather with portraits of the artist's model. How does the artist convey the image of a model when young, and then, later, when that model is much older? Can such a portrait, executed in old age, still convey a type of beauty less easy to see than the obvious aesthetic qualities of youth? And can the artist still penetrate the surface to reveal an inner worth through the genius of the painter's insight? This short Victorian tale gives us a glimpse of what might be, going beyond the usual artist and model relationship, as here, the model is the artist's wife.
The wife stood resting on her silver-headed cane before the picture her husband had painted of her in the days of their youthful lovemaking. Her husband, who was a successful artist, and her son, who was a poet, were at the private view of the Royal Academy, where his last picture, entitled The Portrait of His Wife, as she was now, of course, was hung. She was alone. She had not been out of the house for many years. She had sent them off cheerfully, and now she stood, sadly enough, looking at the picture of girlish freshness, rounded cheeks, and glowing colour that had once been her portrait. What tricks time plays with us! It is not enough that he robs us year by year and kills us at the last, but he heaps humiliation on us. All the good things that he gave, he ruins one by one. He makes us painful, pitiful, and ridiculous. What havoc he had made in that wavy dark hair. Year by year, he had weighed on her soft eyes, till they were dim and sunken. He had drawn into lines of pain the soft curves of the young mouth, and removed the pink flush in the young cheeks. And the young form in the picture, how erect it was, how full of life and health and young love. She bent over her stick, and her eyes filled with tears. And now her husband had painted her as she was, fixed on canvas, the story of time's humiliations, and sent the picture for the world to see. She turned away and sat in the warm square window where the early spring sunlight did its best to soothe her, and she read, a little dimly through spectacles, and sewed a little slowly at some household necessity, till she fell asleep, and dreamed of the love-making long ago and the time when she was beautiful. Meanwhile, the artist and his son went through the galleries at Burlington House, speaking to friends and acquaintances and looking at such pictures as interested them. They did not go near the picture which interested them most, from a feeling of simple and modest self-consciousness. Yet both father and son felt a natural gratification in the fact that, though there was no stationary crowd before it, as before the so-called pictures of the year, every now and then some thoughtful 2 or 3 viewers would stop before it and look long and intently. The son knew a good many people, and a good many more people knew him, and kept speaking to him. Sometimes he introduced him to his father, sometimes he did not, and when his father asked why, he answered, quite frankly,
"Because I don't know them from Adam."
The son was the more interested of the two in the success of the father's picture, or rather, as he had no artistic shyness to contend with, was the first to show open interest.
"Come along,"
he said abruptly, catching his father's arm.
"I want to see how it looks among the rest. I want to hear what is said of it. You know, I think it the best thing you have ever done."
As they neared the portrait, slowly, a group of 3 viewers passed in front of them. A man still young, with a strong face and the eyes of intense concentration. A woman, some year or 2 younger, and rather sweet-looking and happy. And then a quite young girl, a less pretty likeness of the other. They stopped before the picture. The artist hesitated between sensitiveness and blameless curiosity. For the man who now looked at his picture was one of the few critics whose opinion the artist considered to be of value to both artists and the public. Praise from that young man was worth having, and the old artist had an idea that if he stayed, he would hear praise. And the more he wanted to stay, the more he felt that to do so was almost indelicate. Delicacy would have prevailed had not his son held him by the arm.
"Oh, it's only the portrait of an ordinary old woman,"
the young girl said impatiently. The man looked in her face and laughed kindly.
"Only the portrait of an ordinary old woman,"
the critic said.
"but the most beautiful thing in the gallery."
He turned to the elder woman.
"Do you remember what we were saying yesterday in the National Gallery? This is one of them. I am glad there is one left in the world, for the result is a fine portrait. I must come back to this."
The critic passed on about his business. The younger girl turned, rather puzzled, to the older woman.
"Eunice, what does Maurice mean? He is so clever, I can never understand what he says, and, as he is to be my brother-in-law, I really should know, now and then, what he's talking about. One good what left in the world?
One good lover. He wasn't meaning anything very hard to understand, this time. It was only something we were saying in the National Gallery. We were looking at those exceedingly plain, long-nosed women, with long foreheads, and the hair tortured off them. We stand and look at them, and linger, and look again, and go back, and go on looking, until they fascinate us, and we feel as if they had become a part of us and of our lives. There are only a few pictures in the world which have this power, and we thought it was because generally, the artist did not take the trouble to learn about the woman. He was content to paint her as ordinary people, idle people, people who did not love her saw her, and we look at the picture as idle, indifferent people, who do not love her. Look at that dreadful thing opposite, the portrait of some married woman's new frock. No more, only the woman that we see over and over again in any crowd, but the woman may have character, may have charm for one man. If that man had been the artist, he could have shown it to us, and the picture would have been beautiful, not tedious. I don't quite see how it is to be helped, because an artist can't very well fall in love with every woman he has to paint, but now and again a man has loved a woman, and painted not only the woman, but also his love for her. He has painted her, not as others saw her, but as he saw, he of all the world, he has painted the enchantment she had for him and no other. He has made generation after generation see with his eyes and love with his love. He has been a good artist because he was a good lover.
And he meant that this picture was like those.
The girl said thoughtfully.
Do you know, Eunice, I believe it, though I don't quite understand. When I look at this old woman, I feel as if I should like to apologize for having spoken of her so rudely.
Yes, that is what he meant. This painter, too, has been able to paint what he saw, not what the world saw, so we feel all the tenderness, the reverence, the eternal love he feels. This is why we find the picture of this ordinary old woman so exceedingly beautiful. This man, too, is a good artist because he is a good lover. I am not sure that I have given you Maurice's exact words. We must read what he writes about this picture in his newspaper column. He will, surely, give his many readers a sympathetic review of the work, so that they may come and appreciate the genius of the artist.
The pair moved away, unconscious that they had been overheard. The artist was quietly pleased, as he had a right to be. He had done his work well, and a man whose good word counted for something was going to point out to the public that it was well done. For the rest, it was all too much a matter of course to appeal to his notice. As he had always been in love with his wife, it never occurred to him to tell her so, and he was not at all surprised that others found out so patent a fact for themselves. But his son was a poet, and he understood women, and when he reached home, he told his mother every word he had heard at the gallery.